This is the Eye for an Eye channel. Welcome to today's show. You might remember the event that occurred back in maybe it was the summertime, the springtime at a school in Tennessee. I covered it over on the website Uprising Revival. One of the faker events that we've seen in the last year, because pretty much every single event that we see is so fake. It's so fake, it's so over the top, and it's so poorly produced that really, if you're not seeing it at this point, well, you probably have the word zombie tattooed on your forehead, because every event that occurs that gets promoted, especially ones where they all happen to have the same weapon that they're using, every single time it's the same weapon and it's the same story, right? Like the guy in Maine. They never make it alive at the other end of these things. There's never a trial, really. Maybe 1 out of 100. Like maybe the guy in Parkland was like the only one that we can all think of off the top of our heads who somehow didn't die in the event. That's probably because the mind control they put him under was so unbelievable that they figured it might be good to actually have a trial to show somebody with their brain completely fried. So I wanted to do a story on this Nashville one because I covered it a couple of times over on the website. I showed you even the walkthrough with the police security footage that was on the police officers' chests that they walked through the school and showed us this, play-by-play. It was so fake. It was so unbelievable. There was no blood anywhere, as per usual, right? They can do these events. They don't even need to show you blood on the wall, and people still believe it because they can't get their heads around how sick our government is and how they make these events up so they could come and grab everybody's bang-bangs, everybody's guns, right? No, they would never do anything like that. They're only telling 5-year-olds that they're born in women's bodies and vice versa and want them to castrate themselves. But they would never, ever want to get any weapons from anybody because, that's not something on their agenda list. They just really care about everybody's feelings. So when the event occurred, of course, it was noted that the person behind it, because it was a Christian school, happened to be somebody who happened to be born in the opposite body conveniently, right? And that narrative, of course, played into it heavily because they continue to keep people divided, and they know if they have a Catholic or Christian school that this happens in, and then they tell you that the shooter happens to be somebody who's castrated themselves, well, they just get the idiots out there to believe it even more so, and then to point a finger at one another and go back and forth. And if you remember, when that story came out, there supposedly was a manifesto. Now, every single time these events occur, there's a manifesto. And that's the newest thing that they do. They leave a manifesto. Apparently, these people are so willing to lay their lives down and end their lives over strangers. They even like to leave a manifesto that is filled with all types of agendas inside. Like, the manifesto tells everybody that they were born in the wrong body, and the reason that they're doing it is because Christians are responsible. Or the other ones that are, of course, somebody just decides they're going to kill all these people they've never met and then kill themselves at the end because they hate somebody's skin color, right? These are all things we're supposed to believe. The motive is, never anything that's could actually really occur in a real world. Like, people wouldn't lay their lives down and do this to complete strangers. Most of the time, most crimes are motivated by some type of hatred, like if somebody screws somebody or a domestic dispute. Those events, they don't like to cover those too much because there's not agendas that they can tie in. But these events, of course, are all scripted, and they don't want you to know that. So, conveniently, when this happened, there was a manifesto, but we never found out about the manifesto. But now, thankfully, thanks to a alt-right conservative, right? Because, of course, somehow Steven Crowder of the alt-right was given access to this before the mainstream media. Oh, well, that's how it all works, right? Because they want to pretend as if, they're keeping this from being released because they don't want Christians to play into it, et cetera, et cetera. It's all done by design. It's all scripted. Again, this is the mass herding that's going on. And of course, the manifesto was released to the alt-right, so now we have access to the manifesto. So I'm going to read you this very, very fake manifesto, which is hilarious. It reads verbatim like most of these things would, where, of course, they use it as a play-by-play of what's going through the person's mind. And this is actually more so what they want people to be thinking and how they want people to be acting. So they give you a play-by-play on how killers are supposed to think, when in reality, these aren't even Manchurian candidates. Most of these events never even occur. So, in an entry on the day of the attack, titled Death Day, that's how, very good writing here, right? Is this Jason Bay or whatever the guy's name is? Any of these Hollywood writers, are they the ones who really wrote it? Death Day, that's the name of the note. They even give it a title, Death Day. So, this is the note from the supposed attacker. Today is the day. The day's finally come. I can't believe it's here. Don't know how I was able to get this far, but here I am. I'm a little nervous, but excited too. Been excited for the past 2 weeks. Worryingly, She said there were several times she could have been caught. None of that matters now, said the killer. I'm almost an hour and 7 minutes away. Can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm ready. I hope my victims aren't. How funny. How quirky. Even to the last minute, right? I hope my victims are. How funny the CIA is. I mean, this, what's this person's name? George Glass, Jane Doe. Yeah, same difference. So I love how this also was like written out, time to the exact time, and out. She wrote this, and she looks like an hour and 7 minutes away, right? Goes on to say, my only fear is if anything goes wrong, I'll do my best to prevent any of the sort. God, let my wrath take over my anxiety. It might be 10 minutes tops. It might be 3 to 7. It's going to go quick. I hope I have a high death count, ready to die, because this is what people write, right? I mean, huh? What? Can I reread that sentence? She said, God, let my wrath take over my anxiety. It might be 10 minutes tops. It might be 3 to 7. It's going to be quick. I hope I have a high death count, ready to die. Is this a video game? I mean, it's unbelievable. People believe this stuff's real. So the mayor, and by the way, I mean, for those of you that might be new to all this stuff, if you actually watch the footage, which was pretty funny because, like I point out all the time, there's a difference between people like me and you and the alt-right. Is the alt-right still tells you that these stories are real, right? They still present these things to you as if they're real, and then they still herd you inside of that left-right paradigm. So on this day when this occurred, of course, they wanted all the conservatives to go after these people who are trans, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just part of the trap they keep people in. They never cover these stories as fake, right? Which was one of the examples they set with Alex Jones. When that whole event happened with the hook at Sandy, all done by design. Alex Jones could have sat in court and said, well, I just didn't agree with the way the news reported. I thought it was suspicious, so why don't we present the evidence and then, we'll go through it and I'll tell you how I feel, et cetera. No. Of course, the whole show had to be him going there, apologizing, saying he made it up for views and ratings and all this other stuff. All these events are fake. This is what, if anyone's wondering what the CIA does all day, they're like, oh, they're a intelligence agency. Oh, they're protecting us. This is what they do. They create false flags and psyops so that they can herd you into what they want you to do. That's how they're continually getting us into a surveillance state. So they create events like this, and then people like Steven Crowder, they cover it and they still pretend even to this day that these events are real, that these aren't either Manchurian candidates in some cases or just flat out fake. Now, when I covered this event, all the footage showed you that it wasn't real. It couldn't have been faker. The body camera footage was so ridiculously bad. There was nothing on the wall. There was guys standing there out of in the view, standing there, the supposed shooter, not protecting themselves from the. I mean, it was literally a dummy. It was a dummy. And of course, as always with these events, they run these drills at the same time, and then they actually go live. So again, Steven Crowder and all these guys cover this. And then you hear stories like this. The note says, I hope I have a high death count, ready to die. And they're like, this is just sickening. We're reading this stuff. It's heartbreaking. Oh, the poor people involved. And they never cover the fact that these things all bring in new laws, new restrictions, and it's all about hurting our way of life and taking our rights away. And that's what they create them for. They're called psychological operations. But of course, the right-wing media pretends that it's suppressed and it's censored, and they never cover this stuff from that perspective, ever. Have you ever heard any of these people actually come out and question, like, the credibility of the news and, like, watch these news? They sit there and they tell us day and night about fake news and, oh, CNN's fake news, that's fake news. Oh, they're promoting and they're trying to attack Trump, right? And everybody's like, yeah, they're fake news. And then it's like, but you believe these actual news stories they put out? They couldn't be faker. There's never any blood. There's nothing. There's no motive. The story's the same every time. Every one of these shooters always happens to pick the same gun. Every time it's the same gun. And every time there's no motive. And every time they have a manifesto. And every time the guy killing all these innocent people that he's never met dies. Huh? And if you want to look at it and say, well, some of them are Manchurian candidates, that's fine. You can go through the evidence and see some of them are real. Some of them might be fake. But when you say that they're real, they're still not really real. Because if it's a Manchurian candidate, that means it's created by our own government. So it's not an organic event that occurs. It means that they send somebody out in the real world to commit these crimes. And Manchurian candidates look no further than all these famous serial killers. There's all connections with all these famous serial killers like Charles Manson and the CIA because they're all agents, right? They created all these events. Those were their trial runs and experiments they did. That's why they glorify all these serial killers over and over and over again. So there's 9,000 documentaries about every one. Has the story changed? Do we need 50 versions of the same story about Ted Bundy? Oh, it's a different perspective. Is it? It's the same story. Oh, we need another perspective on Dahmer? It's the same story. They glorify it because these are all their works of art. They're Manchurian candidates. So why do you think you see like the Podestas of the world having statues in their home of Dahmer's victims? Okay? I mean, nobody asks any questions. They just still think this stuff's real. They're like, I'm awake. I know what's going on. Oh, do you? These stories aren't real. But you call it, they're like, yeah, I know the news is fake. I know CNN's fake news. Oh, okay. Do you know that all the stories are fake and manufactured? They create these things. And the CIA laughs so hard because they don't even try to make these events look real anymore. Like this event. So back to the note that was conveniently leaked months later to Steven Crowder in the right-wing media. It's unbelievable. So the mayor on Monday said an investigation into the leaks has been launched. Of course, there's an investigation into how they leaked out and leaked to Steven Crowder. I've directed Wally Deitz, Metro's law director, to initiate an investigation into how these images could have been released. The investigation may involve local, state, and federal authorities. I'm deeply concerned with the safety, security, and well-being of the Covenant families and all Nashvillians who are grieving. So don't be surprised if a false fight comes out of this, where there's an attack on trans people from so-called Christian people, all because they saw this manifesto, et cetera, right? Because it's just never-ending psyop. I mean, they could just keep doing it over and over and over again, and people think these events aren't formulated and created. And they are. They all are. So they say the incident naturally invokes additional emotional trauma, and families or individuals who need support should reach out to professionals at National Alliance of Mental Health. Deed says he's unable to confirm their authenticity. At this time, we have limited information about the possible leak of the documents related to the tragic event at the Covenant School. I cannot confirm or deny the authenticity of the documents due to the existing lawsuit. At the request of the mayor, I am initiating a full investigation into it. And then they show Steven Crowder's tweet. He says some of the quotes from the manifestos talk about crackers, white privilege, want to kill all you little crackers, hope I have a high death count, I'm ready. I hope my victims are ready to die. It's another entry on February 3rd, 6 weeks before the event took place. Kill those kids. Kill those crackers. Those crackers are going to go into private schools with those fancy sports backpacks with their money daddies, Mustangs, and convertibles. F you little S's. Excuse me. I can't even say the words. So you see exactly how this plays into, now Crowder and the right wing are like, oh, look at these liberals, and they're all... they're looking because they're spoiled kids and they actually go to work and their parents got a job, so they're considering them privileged where this person doesn't work, blah, 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 as we continue to be at each other's throats and not even look at this stuff as if they're actually real stories or not. They're herding mechanisms. That's the whole point of these things, and they work every time. How do we know they work? Because nobody even questions the validity of them, if they're real or not. I mean, look at some of the stuff going on now, which I might do a separate video on. I've talked so much so, and I'm going to go off topic a little bit here, but bear with me. I've talked so much so about censorship, right? And how the left has censored the right, and then how it goes both ways, right? What are we seeing now at the event over in Bagelville? We're seeing the right-wing media come in and tell everybody, oh, well, TikTok is taking the side of the Palestinians, so we need to censor what's said on there because that's the wrong opinion to have. That's what an opinion is. You're allowed to have an opinion. They're like buttholes, right? Everybody's got them. Oh, okay. Well, you can't have an opinion on this because these people are victims. They've always been under attack. You can't. What? So now the conservatives are asking for censorship of other people's opinions? Oh, right, because it has to happen that way. Because eventually all these people are just going to cancel each other out. Like I said, that's why nobody should be questioning. Let these people say what they want and then let us say what we want back and vice versa. But no, now we're seeing the politicians come in and say there needs to be censorship, and all the conservatives are going, yeah, we need to. We shouldn't let them have an opinion. Why? Huh? Oh, okay, wait. We shouldn't let people have opinions because that's dangerous, right? Having opinions is dangerous, and eventually this just leads to complete suppression of free thought, which is what they want on both sides, and the idiots out there don't realize that now they're taking away free speech just like the liberals took away free speech in the beginning. So it's just unbelievable. It really is. So this manifesto goes on to say, I wish to shoot your weak A dongs with your mop yellow hair, want to kill all you little crackers, bunch of white Fs with your white privileges, F you, F this, F that. So that's what's amazing about all of this, right? Is that they can create these psyops, and we have people that are so warped mentally that the shooter is actually a white person, if you're not familiar with the tale that they're weaving here and telling us. So the shooter was white, And the shooter is saying, oh, white privilege, right? And this is the insane world that we live in, where they're actually like telling us this stuff. And then you have all these liberals who are white, who are anti-white. And we're just sitting here and we're accepting this as if this is like real and normal. And nobody's going, talking about it, because you would read this, you'd be like, oh, is the person black? Right? Because you say, oh, they clearly ain't white people. What's their nationality? Are they Asian? Are they black? Are they Mexican? What are they? Oh, they're white. And nobody's going, okay, it's just, the whole thing is unbelievable. It's unbelievable how politically what they've done to people's minds, where they've convinced them, people who are even white, to hate themselves and hate other people who are white. I mean, and I get it, it's not a real story, but this is the mindset that's in our society. So they put this out there because they want this mindset to be the mindset that people have, right? So Hale planned out the massacre by the minute, aiming to wake up at 6:30 a.m., get dressed at 7:05, and spend time with their stuffed animals and possessions between 7:05 and 8:55, right? And they've got to put that in again, because obviously the mindset that most conservatives have are that liberals are giant children, which they are, but it doesn't mean that conservatives aren't either, because they are too in some ways, right? And I'm not trying to sit here and act all high and mighty. I mean, I have things that, that I do and still do, and I try to prevent myself. They're still child. I mean, we all have childish tendencies, right? I mean, but, the fact that they put that in there, the girls hanging out with their stuffed animals before committing this is just, it's laughable, because what the whole point is, that how are conservatives going to read that, and then what is their mindset going to be? It's going to unhinge them, because they're like, can you believe it? The person's white, they want to kill all white people, they're calling them crackers, then they're sitting there playing with their stuffed toys before they go and kill all these people, right? I mean, it just ties in perfectly with the major mind F that these people have done to our society. And again, the CIA sits there, the FBI sits there, nobody does anything. They point a finger about, the DOJ and all these people are anti-Republican. They're anti-humanity, okay? All these people are anti-humanity. When is humanity going to band together? Oh, right, never. Because that's why they need stories like this, psychologically, to operate on your mind, to think that people like this exist, and then you go, well, people like this do exist, some people say. They're like, I know somebody who's like that. Well, they only act like that because the media is making them act like that. Celebrities are making them act like that. Just like we have people castrating themselves. Why are they castrating themselves? Because they're making people insane through the media, through the movies, through the influence. That's how. People weren't doing that 100 years ago. They would have been arrested. The only time people were castrating themselves were during satanic rituals, as I cover over on the website. So the manifesto just goes on to be more and more ridiculous. She used 7 legally purchased guns in the attack, despite having received treatment for an emotional disorder, which should have stopped from her being able to buy them. Hale herself attended the Covenant School as a child. The manifesto is among evidence that the Nashville PD is not yet released. And of course, that's part of it too, where you have the right getting hive mind, the right hive mind going, hey, they don't release the manifesto. But if the person happened to be conservative and they were a Trump voter, they would have released the manifesto. Well, that's exactly how they want you to think. That's why they didn't release the manifesto. That's why they made you wait. That's why they gave a leak to Steven Crowder. It's all done by design. You're being psychologically hurt, but they don't want to hear it. They don't want to know it, right? Say people come over here and comment, and they're like, you suck, because, Trump's right, and he's great, and he's going to save us. You'll see. And it's like, when are you going to realize that that's what they want you? Trump wouldn't be here if they didn't want him here. All this stuff gets out because they want it out. It's a psychological operation. If people think they're like pointing at the other side. They're like, they don't get it. Yeah, they don't. Liberals are obviously the dumbest people to ever exist. But at the same time, so are the conservatives. Because they believe this stuff. They're like, oh, can you believe it? Oh, they didn't release the manifesto. Well, why don't you think they released the manifesto immediately? Oh, because they didn't want you to know that the person was their mindset had all these lib mindsets. Obviously, they were lib. They were trans. Oh, all right. Well, they didn't want us to know because if they were conservative, they would have released it right away. Well, yeah, exactly. Because they're driving you insane and hurting you at the same time. So it goes on to say media outlets have been campaigning for transparency and say suppressing the files could set a dangerous precedent to block the release of records without a victim's consent. A judge ruled last month that families of the victims have a right to protest the release of records. They have begged the police to not make the files public, citing the risk of a copycat attack. And of course, they're obviously baiting people with the story. You know what I mean? Like this is, they could easily just create another false flag. So when you say, well, why would they release this all of a sudden anyway? Because they're going to bait people into another false flag. Then they're going to go, there was an attack on trans people, and it's because of the they released the manifesto. Oh, because Steven Crowder. Oh, we need to censor what people can say and can't say. You see where this is all headed? I mean, it's really just, it's just so, I mean, what is the word he even used to describe like how ridiculous it is that people can't formulate the opinion that this stuff's all made up? They can believe it's made up when it comes to like, oh, they're like, oh, it's fake news, the stuff that they're saying about Trump and all this. But you think this stuff's real? I mean, now it's, it's convenient, right? Because they're like, well, it's real because they targeted Christians and they targeted a Christian school. None of it's real. There's nothing faker on earth than the news. Every story is fake. Why do you think they scrubbed the internet? I'm not the only one who was doing this. How many of us were doing this stuff, covering actual news stories and then going through the footage of like each event? Like, okay, here's where they come into the school. Here's what they do. And everybody's just like laughing. It's like, look how fake this is. They scrubbed all of us off the internet. Okay. And then what did they do? They put in this alt-right movement. And everyone's like, oh, here are these new people. Oh, they're funny. They're entertaining. They have like $1 million production shows. They're not like sitting on a microphone like me and, with just an image on a screen. They have, Steven Crowder show. You can tell it's a high budget production, right? And they put them in there. And then when these events happen, instead of going like, let's break down the footage and go through this. Are these crisis actors? Are these people even real? They just take the stories as if they're real. And that's done by design. That's what their job is. That's why they need the alt-right. Instead of going, hey, all the news is fake. All these stories are fake. Look how fake this is. Look how fake that is. Where's the blood? Well, I mean, we've seen better productions in, D-level horror films. Nope. Never hear them say it. Never hear any of the mainstream alt-right say it. Ever, ever, ever. They'll never say it. And that's the whole thing with the Alex Jones stuff, right? Jones played his role. Instead of coming out and going, hey, I didn't really believe the story. So what? What's the big deal? I didn't believe the story. I hurt some people's feelings. Fine. Prove to me it's real. And we'll go through all the footage and we'll go through everything. And I'll tell you how I feel after I see all the real stuff. That's what he could have done, was get the actual real stuff released, gone through it in a trial where other people out there could have seen it on TV and been like, whoa, that doesn't look very real. Right? And said, hey, why is this dad cracking up hours after this happened? And then pretending to cry 10 seconds later. I mean, it's some of the funniest stuff you'll ever see. But that whole movement is dead. I was a part of that movement, obviously, right? I don't need to get rehashed. Most people are familiar, although there's a lot of new people here now, right? Well, they wiped everybody out because they didn't want people looking through these events as if they were real or fake. So then they inserted Q, they inserted the alt-right media, and they take these events as if they're real. They talk about them like they're real, and then they herd you with them. Instead of going, hey, look at this. Can you see what they're trying to do here? Do you see what they're trying to do? Do you see the pattern here with the manifesto and the same weapon every time and the guy never lives, right? It's always the same crap, right? And then if they do it with a lib like this, of course they have the person be trans, because then it drives the right even more insane, where they're like, how are they getting weapons? They're trans. They shouldn't be allowed to because they're not mentally sane, et cetera, right? The whole thing is it's laughable at this point. What's more amazing, though, is like seeing these people who think that they're awake and follow like the Steven Crowders. And I don't care. Like, people are like, oh, you're jealous. I couldn't care less. If I was doing this about views, I wouldn't be doing it anymore. I would have left when another YouTuber got thrown off the internet years ago. I don't care. I care about the truth. I care about showing you everybody, look, this is how psychological operations work. This is why those people are still doing what they're doing and promote it. Because they keep you thinking that these stories are real. If everybody realized all these stories were fake and productions, then they would be like, all right, wait a minute. We got to go after these people. Let's just get rid of them. Let's throw them in jail for treason. Oh, no. They want to keep you thinking this stuff's real, and they want to herd you with it. So that's what this is. So anyway, I wanted to do a rant about it. The whole thing is obviously, it's hilarious. And then, like, they tell you in these articles, like, we don't know how Steven Crowder got it. Right? Because his role is he's playing like, oh, he's oppressed. He was thrown off YouTube. He plays that role too, like most of these alt-right guys do. Now, you might say that I play the role. I don't play the role. I've been thrown off. Now you see how every month this happens. If that happened to Steven Crowder, it'd be like people going crazy every month, right? But, they play the role. Christian, he's got a gun on his desk. He fits the stereotype. He's a bully. And then, of course, he's promoted. He's still loud. The guy makes, they was offered like $100 million from Daily Wire, and he's trying to pretend like he's rebellious. That's the new thing they're trying to do with all these guys, right? With Russell Brand, Tucker Carlson, Steven Crowder. They're trying to make them look legitimate by saying that they're censored, etc. Now you might say, well, don't you do that? No, because I don't have a following. They took it away, right? I'm not still promoted. I don't have that $1 million production crew like Crowder and these guys have. I'm not getting put on Jim, Russell Brand is on like national, worldwide, I shouldn't say national, he's in Hollywood movies still. Promoted all over the place. And they're like, oh, I feel bad, they're censoring Russia. What? Are you kidding me? I mean, these guys rebranding themselves, no pun intended? No, they're not. These people are there to keep you herded into thinking this stuff's real. It's not real. None of it's real. That's the point. The news is the fakest thing there is. Every story we see is formulated. Now, there might be some stuff in the local news that's true. I never said that every single thing in the local news is fake, but they still cover national stories. These national events are fake. They couldn't be faker. There's an agenda behind all of them. So they're going to continue to keep you trapped in it. But they gave us a little leak of the manifesto. And of course, it was a white woman, white man, whatever they want to call it, who hates white people, right? So that riles up the right because like, these people are crazy. There's a white person who has a anti-white manifesto. How did they get like this? Well, how did you get like this, even believing it's a real story? Do you know that the government creates all these events and have been doing it forever? No, they don't want you to know that or talk about that, talk about crisis actors or any of that stuff, because it's too obvious how fake it all is, right? It's too obvious when people actually cover that stuff and then they get wiped off the internet for covering. But as long as you keep them trapped in the hive mind, well, then you'll be promoted. And, you think there'll be a day where they call it, what is my channel? Eye for an eye. And they're like, hey, eye for an eye. I got the manifesto. I want to leak it to you from the event. I mean, that'll be the day. That'd be hilarious. I mean, I'll do a stand-up routine reading the manifesto. Of course, that would never happen. How did Steven Crowder get? Somebody has called him. They're like, oh, Steven Crowder, I got the manifesto. I'll risk my life in jail for leaking this top secret information to you because it's so important that you get it out to people. Huh? Nobody asks questions. They just think that this stuff's all naturally occurring. None of it's real. It's to keep you trapped. As long as you're in a trap hive mind, they will continue to be able to control you. I thank you guys for being here. Hope you're all well. God bless all of you as always and your families.